Hello YouTube! This video is part of my build series for the 3D printable Jabba's Palace complete with hangar. I am going to build the whole thing. I purchased this massive set of 3D printable files from Massassi for my 3.75-inch or 1:18 scale Star Wars figures. I will include the link in the description below. Today we are going to work on set 3, the Hangouts area. In this diagram, you can see where set 3 fits into the overall design of the top floor. This is the first video of my build of set 3, the Hangouts. You can find the videos for sets 1 and 2 in my playlist that I have linked to in the description below. In this video, I will show you my 3D printers and the slicer settings that I used, how to assemble the pieces after you print them, and how much filament the whole set required. This is my main printer, the Anycubic Cobra 3. It's a nice, beginner-friendly, budget-conscious printer that you can get for a couple of $100. And I use the Anycubic Slicer Next software when I do any slicing. My backup printer is the Anycubic Cobra 2 Pro, which is the first printer I ever bought, so I keep using it so that I can have two going at the same time. So far, the only filament that I've been using is from Anycubic, and it's gray PLA, and I buy it from Amazon. I buy it in a box that contains 4 rolls at a time, and this seems to be the cheapest way to get it. So for the filament settings, I made a few changes. Under the filament tab, I decreased the other layers and the first layer print temperature to 200 because it reduces stringing. And I increased the print bed temperature to 63 from 60, which was the default, because it helps with bed adhesion. Here are my cooling settings. And finally, under setting overrides, I enabled retraction so that the nozzle does not hit the print. So the length of 1 millimeter, Z hop of 1 millimeter, and retraction speed of 50. I had to set those because that was off by default. So for the actual print settings, these are the settings that I use for the quality tab. And I'm just going to show you all of them, and I'll leave it for a second, but I won't go over it. So here's strength, speed, support, multi-material, which the Cobra 3 allows you to print with 4 different colors of filament. So I don't use that. I didn't buy that feature. So it's all turned off. And here's the others tab. The other thing I did that I think is critical and it makes a great difference is I turned on variable layer control. So for all the pieces, I would select the object, I'd click the variable layer height icon, and I'd set it to 0 under adaptive and then click the adaptive button. And then it will print the pieces that need more attention and they have more shapes to them. They'll have a lower layer height, and then the straight up pieces like the bases will have a higher layer height, which prints faster. Finally, for smaller objects or objects that have a lot of detail, I like to slow the printing down to 50 millimeters per second. But then I keep all the rest of the other settings. Here is what all the pieces look like once they are printed. Now it's time to start the assembly. The first step is the floor, and there's 4 number 1 pieces. And what Massassi recommends is, I bought these 3mm by 14mm pins. I stick them in the holes that he provides. I always test fit the pegs first because sometimes the holes are tight. And then I use Gorilla Glue to glue the pieces together. I do it on a flat surface because I want, when it's dried, the floor to be flat. Don't put too much glue on because I don't want it leaking through the corners. And then you attach the pieces together where the pins are. And I'll push them together and hold them flat. So I push them down to make them flat, and I push them together because I don't want the size to grow because there's spaces in between. So I push them as close as I can. And then we'll let that completely dry before we move on to the next pieces. Here you can see that I've glued in the 4 pieces of the back wall and also the 4 large stairs at the front. There's 4 smaller stairs also that would have been glued, but I'm going to save those for later. Before I can glue the 4 arcs together, I need to assemble the carpet. So I print them out like this, and they have some brims, and I need to cut off the brim. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a tempered glass cutting board for the kitchen as my cutting board, and the brims are not breaking off nicely, so what I have to do is I'll take a metal ruler position it very carefully and do a few scoring cuts. So 1, 2 was enough. And I'm going to cut the brim off. This one is harder because it's on an angle, so I'm just going to bend it. Make a crease. And then cut. Now this one will go in here. Oh, and it fits perfectly. Okay, good. So now we'll keep going. We'll cut the brims off all the other ones and do any trims that are necessary. I had to use clamps when I was gluing down the pieces of the carpet, but everything worked out okay. I glued the 4 arcs together, and then I assembled them into the floor. Once those were in, I glued the small stairs inside the arc pillars at the bottom. And I also added the inner and outer bars along the top of the roof. Here you can see that I've glued on the 4 pieces of the ceiling. I've glued them on top of the arc. And then there's also the rest of the ceiling. These are piece 5s, and they are going to go here like this. So I've glued them all together. But I'm not going to attach this to that. I'm not going to glue it down because I want to be able to, one, run the wires eventually. And if you make it removable, you can get in there and move things around. So the last thing to do is I've glued these two pieces together, 6 and 7, and they're going to go right here. Just for fun, I wanted to see how much filament that set 3 would require. So I made a spreadsheet that listed out all the pieces, how much filament each one used, and how many hours it took to print. You can find all this information in the slicer software after you slice the object. For example, here is HOC main arc 6. Down here, you can see that the total filament required is 123.07 grams, and the total print time is 3 hours and 9 minutes. Going back to the spreadsheet, if I scroll down to the bottom, where the totals are, you can see that we used a total of 4472.24 grams of filament. There are 1,000 grams in a roll, so this means I needed almost 4.5 rolls. We can also see that it took almost 121 hours to print everything. Thank you for watching my build series video for the 3D printable Jabba's Palace complete with hanger from Massassi. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. If you have any other ideas or tips for how to complete any of the steps that I've shown, please leave us a comment below.